This event was recorded earlier this month prior to India facing its toughest healthcare challenge in recent history. Let us please observe 30 seconds of silence to commemorate the deaths of thousands of our brethren to COVID 19 and also to acknowledge the sacrifice, hardship, and grief that our fellow Indians have been going through. We firmly believe that art has the power to transform lives, and it is resilience and hope that will get us all through to the other side. Doctors and medical professionals, in their own way, are artists operating on the canvas of wellness, and we need their resilience as they work insane hours and incredibly hard to see Indians through the second wave. Aparajita, the resilient artist, applauding the undaunted spirit in all artists.
Hi guys, my name is Amish Tripathi and I'm the director of the Nehru Center. The Nehru Center is the cultural wing of the Indian High Commission in the UK, and we've been in existence for many decades, and we organize wonderful events at this very auditorium, which is in Mayfair in central London. Sadly, as you can see, the auditorium is empty. It has been empty since we were all put into lockdown due to the coronavirus pandemic. But what we Indians believe is that the other side of a crisis is an opportunity. And what we have done at the Nehru Center is moved all our events online. So now, if you attend our online events, every single seat is a VIP seat. Like you get a front row at our events. No trouble of parking, no trouble of traveling all the way. And most practically all the programs that we would do, like literary discussions and dance performances, musical performances. We are doing them all on our online channels. You can register at for our newsletter at our website nehrucenter.org.uk. You don't need to write them down; they will be displayed at the bottom of the screen. You can also come to our Facebook page, which is a verified page, the Nehru Center. You can follow updates on all our events on Twitter as well, the Nehru Center. That's also a verified account, or you can come to our YouTube channel. Again, the Nehru Center. We are nothing if not consistent. I hope you do come to our online channels and enjoy the events that we're putting up for you. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Namaste. Jai Hind.
Gare gani dha dhani re sa सरसीरुवदळनयने सरसीरुवदळनयने शरदिन्दुनिभानने सरसीरुवदळनयने शरदिन्दुनिभानने शबळीकृत सर्वज्ञे शबळीकृत सर्वज्ञे सकले गुरुगुहनमने सरसीरुवदळनयने शरदिन्दुनिभानने शबळीकृत सर्वज्ञे सकले गुरुगुहनमने सरसीरुवदळनयने शरदिन्दुनिभानने अपराजिते सरस्वती अपराजिते सरस्वती अपराजित विक्रम वीर्य विजय विदिताखिल शास्त्र कला जलधि अपराजित विक्रम वीर्य विजय विदिताखिल शास्त्र कला जलधि नीलांबर सीम महिमा पार गुणनिरता कलावती नीलांबर सीम महिमा पार गुणनिरता कलावती सरस्वती विधिवती सरस्वती विधिवती करवेणा पारदे यमनियमाद्यष्टाङ्गयोगविहिते कल्याण गुणमय सुमते यमनियमाद्यष्टाङ्गयोगविहिते कल्याण गुणमय सुमते सरस्वती अपराजिते सरस्वती अपराजिते आ
Namaskar, I am Kripa.
Namaskar, I am Nilambari. We are founders of Madhurya Art House, London.
We are thankful to Dr. Kanix Kanikeswaran for penning this hymn specifically for this festival. It has been rendered so soulfully by his daughter, the wonderfully talented Vidita Kanix, a multifaceted vocalist equally well versed in Indian and Western classical music. She has studied both the Hindustani and Carnatic musical traditions, particularly the Drupad style of vocal technique and interpretation. Some notable appearances include her feature at the India Dance Festival in The Hague, Netherlands, her solo performance at Madison Square Gardens, New York, for Indian Prime Minister Modi's inaugural ceremony. She is currently based in Cincinnati, where she is an active vocal instructor and teaching artist in both Western and Indian classical styles.
My pranams to all the gurus and a warm welcome to all the rasikas and friends who have tuned in. The impact dance has had on us as individuals, our relationships with others, and even our worldview makes it impossible for Kripa and I to imagine a life sans dance. It is this all encompassing power of dance, with its reach into our psyche, our physical well being, our endorphin filled selves, our rootedness in culture, our glimpse into our core self, call it our soul if you will, which compelled us to form Madhurya Art House for the perpetuation of Indian classical arts. And it is our goal to expose as many varied individuals and especially young children as we can so that they experience and derive opportunities for their unique growth. Dance is mathematical in being creative within a rigid structure, scientific in its search for truth, sports like compelling in its pushing of anatomical boundaries, divine in its inspiration, spiritual in its transcendence, and practical in its teachings for business, life narrative, and fitness. The virtual medium is a great enabler, and it has made it possible for us to invite you to participate in this celebration, APRAJITA, the resilient artists, where we celebrate the undaunted spirit in all artists over the next 3 days.
As part of this festival, we spoke to numerous artists about what the term resilience means to them. You can find these clips on our social media pages.
This festival is being hosted by the Nehru Centre, London. Our utmost gratitude to Amish Tripathi and his team for this platform.
In particular, we would like to thank Archana, Guhareji, Ravi, and Vinny.
Guys, these are tough times. That's kind of stating the obvious. I myself am stuck in India right now, in my city of Mumbai. I've been here for the last few weeks, battling a COVID storm that has run through much of my family. We are all battling these odds in these days, and when the going gets tough, all of us have to find inner resolve and strength to get through these times. And we thought this would be a good theme to showcase and to all of you at the Nehru Center. So therefore, we are putting up a series of programs, of performing arts programs called Aparajita, which is Sanskrit for that which is undefeated. It shows the resolve and the spirit and the resilience of artists, not just from the UK, but from the Indian subcontinent, from the US, from Australia, within the UK, outside of London as well, from various parts of the UK. We'll be showcasing various dance forms such as ballet, dance forms of the Indian subcontinent. There'll be discussions as well on how the dance forms of the Indian subcontinent have developed in the UK. We do hope that you enjoy these programs, and I hope that they give you a succor in these tough times. As always, please keep giving us feedback, and let's hope you enjoy these programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Amish. Now, without further ado, let's get started. And the obvious place to start is at the beginning of the journey of Indian dance in the UK.
When you Google classical Indian dance in the UK, the first real entry after the standard commercial links about classes, mostly that of Bharatanatyam, is the ISTD page on the history of classical Indian dance. This page narrates how it all started for classical Indian dance in the UK with a research project, and how the organization Academy, which we all know about, was pioneering in this, and a new society faculty was created in 1999 to examine both Bharatanatyam and Kathak. Then it goes on to talk about a number of modern non-Devdasi professional Indian dancers being presented in the UK and in Europe, including names like Uday Shankar, Ram Gopal, Mrinalini Sarabhai, and so on and so forth. But unless you are a serious researcher or move in their orbit or have lived the journey with the dancers, it is hard to get a true sense of its evolution, let alone develop any insights from it. And I am proud and honored to bring before you two doyens in this field. Professor Anne David in conversation with Guru Pushkala Gopal in a fireside chat on this very topic, evolution of classical Indian dance in the UK. Anne David is a professor of dance and cultural engagement at the University of Roehampton in London, specializing in dance anthropology and South Asian classical and popular dance. She's trained in ballet and folk dance, as well as in Bharatanatyam and Kathak. She's been a research fellow on a major international project on religious migrants funded by the Ford Foundation in the US. She's widely published, and some notable ones include co editing and contributing to a book on Dance Ethnography and Global Perspective, Identity, Embodiment, and Culture 2013, as well as chapters in books on Bollywood, Shah Rukh Khan and Global Bollywood 2015, and Dance Matters, Performing India 2010. Coming to Guru Pushkala Gopal, what can I say? She's a celebrated dancer, mentor, guru globally. Her successful career in the UK spans over 5 decades as a performer, teacher, choreographer, mentor, orator. It all started with the British Council Scholarship, she tells us, in 1983. She was the artistic director of Academy from 1984 to 1986. She's choreographed on a variety of themes in several languages, has trained many Bharatanatyam dancers, several of whom are soloists and Carnatic musicians over the years who have performed globally. She's the vice chair and fellow of the Indian Classical Dance faculty at ISTD and has won many prestigious awards, and most recently the MBE. A big welcome to both of you. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Professor Anne.
Thank you very much, Nambari. That's a wonderful introduction, and thank you for inviting us both. Pushkar and I actually have known each other quite a long time. I think going back to, in fact, to the 80s when Pushkala first came to the UK to work. And when we've talked about this idea of the history of Indian classical dance in the UK and the kind of resilience of those dance forms in line with the theme of the festival, we thought really about starting at a kind of pivotal moment in this history around the 1980s. And then we will both look back and look forward in the period of time that this extraordinary history exists. So beginning really around the 1980s, we know that Academy of Indian Dance, which we will talk about, began in 1979. Then in 1982, we had the very famous Festival of India that went on for, I think, at least 10 months, a big festival in London and the rest of the UK. Quite controversial as we look back at that now, perhaps with reminiscences of the old colonial exhibitions, but that's another story. But then in 1983, Pushkala came to the UK and started an extraordinary career here. So Pushkala, would you like to start with telling us a little bit about that time, what it was like when you
So I came in on a British Council fellowship and had for my supervisor, David Henshaw, who had an extremely open mind about education techniques in performing arts being applied to the Indian styles as well. So on one side, we had the Bhavan, and just before I came in, there had been a performing tour of Bharatanatyam of Chitra Sundaram, which probably was the first solo touring circuit performances in the UK for this generation. Earlier things happened with Ram Gopal and the others, which and we'll talk about later. But from the Bhavan, the Academy had actually moved to October Gallery. Its first home was at the Bhavan physically, and then it had moved. And Tara Rajkumar, who had just moved to Australia before my arrival, had left two different legacies. One was the interest that she'd managed to generate in Indian dance, the classical Indian dance. She worked with Kathakali and Mohiniyattam. But the other major legacy was that she'd managed to get huge presence for the Academy with what was known as the ILEA, Inner London Education Authority, which then had dance teachers going into schools and actually working with either the dance teachers of the schools or with other subjects in the curriculum to give young people a taste of Indian dance. And while there was a select community that already sent pupils to the Bhavan, the widespread awareness of classical Indian dance as being fun to do was simultaneously growing in London through these projects and projects of the greater, we had GLC, so the council, the Greater London Council. And then simultaneously, things had been happening in the Midlands because there was a community there. The Arts Council had started a project for animators who had to go into the communities, lead workshops, and get a cross-section of the community involved in whatever was happening at the theatre. But this time also synchronized with a huge influx of the Sri Lankan Tamil community into the UK, which then meant that temples also started slowly to become places for community performances. And the Arangetram industry, if I might call it that, started to grow. And so this led to lots of performance opportunities, not just for resident artists, but people bringing musicians and accompanists over from India and other countries. So there was then a community presence for classical dance. And Kathak had its Guru Pratap Pawar had come into the UK about, I think, possibly just around the late 70s or the early 80s. He was also teaching Kathak at the Bhavan and performing for the academy and running classes. There was Alpana Sengupta, another GLC-funded artist, and quite a few other community artists who were all supported in their individual boroughs, but they hadn't come together to connect with each other much. And subsequently, there were festivals that were hosted by Greater London Arts, GLA. And I think people started to feel a sense of community because they were brought together on advisory groups.
I think the other thing maybe to add is that it was only in 1980 that the Arts Council first had a budget for dance. I mean, extraordinary, really. And also for what was then called the ethnic minorities. We really don't use those terms anymore, but there was suddenly some funding available, as you've indicated.
And the interesting thing was the Academy was funded to take its first dance drama touring around the UK. And we decided to do Adventures of Mowgli. The Academy had a co-director called John Chapman who was leaving, but he seeded this idea and put in the application and then left it to me. And subsequently, Naseem Khan came in as co-director of the Academy for that period, when it was thought that it was important to spread the notion of a performance generated by a British-based company, brought together Pratap Pawar as co-choreographer, the Dhananjayans from India, who Dhananjayan was the choreographer, and Shobhana Jaisingh was part of it, I was part of it, Priya Pawar was part of it, and we had an amalgamation of styles, Odissi, Kathakali, Bharatanatyam, Kathak. And so in that sense, it was very inclusive.
And very famously, you had the very young Akram Khan. I think he was about 10 years old.
He played Baby Mowgli.
I remember seeing the performance. It was an extraordinary production, just as you say. And you're reminding me also, talking about Naseem, of course, wonderful work that she did. She'd written that very, very important book called The Arts That Britain Ignores. And that was published, I think, in 1976. So, you know, this period of the late 70s moving into the 80s and then the growth through the 80s was key. You know, she really acknowledged that there hadn't been any funding or any support for both the community practices and the professional practices. And I think then we began to get a series of reports commissioned by Arts Council. I think Aditi was also, do you remember we had Aditi?
Yes, Aditi came in just a little later. Just before Aditi, the Arts Council had done a huge education project in Bedford.
Yes.
Now that again involved me, Shobhana Jaisingh, Piali Ray came in for some parts of it. So the only thing I want to mention here very quickly is the Academy then toured a second production called The Return of Spring. And this time, the focus was to bring in artists from the regions so that they were given an opportunity to tour because their infrastructure hadn't yet got to that level. But also it was a way of the Academy making contact with the regions at a deeper level.
Yes.
So after these two productions, of course, I moved on to do my own work, and Meera Mishra very ably took the Academy from strength to strength to strength.
Looking after it for 30 years. And of course, Academy has just had its 40th anniversary the year before last, with a tremendous performance series of events, and Tara Rajkumar coming over from Australia to be at the helm of all of that. So a kind of looking back for Academy. Maybe it would be good before we start our little journey backwards, just to see what was the context before this period of the 80s and 90s. Would you like to speak about your school? Because that was and has been a very successful.
Well, so we had a successful dance production company,
Yes.
which used to be Pushkala Gopal and Unni Krishnan. Started off with duet work. 2 or 3 years down the road, it became apparent that we would like to work with more dancers. But with all of that, the focus went into running a company for which you required an administrator. And when eventually, a few years down the road, when there was a kind of funding crisis, it also tied in with a pattern where you were still on tour for this one. And because the Arts Council deadline for project funding was November, while you were still touring, you had to devise and design the next project and put it in. And we did try a couple of times, but eventually it became quite hard to do. So we then just decided to invest all our energies in teaching for the community in the mainstream. And after that, any performances that we did came to, because they were not funded by the Arts Council or anything, it used to be classical work in society. But before we did that turn, we actually had the opportunity to work with music composers like L. Subramaniam from the US, to work with V.S. Narasimhan from Chennai, to work with directors like Nigel Jameson and Hilary Westlake. And Shane Shambhu is one of the examples of somebody who has taken the baton away from my generation, and he takes it forward in his own way. So that's about the personal stuff. We were very lucky that the Academy decided to invest in the research project leading to the ISTD, because certainly in terms of the standards of Bharatanatyam and Kathak, the work that we do now is validated, and there is a commitment from pupils to persevere and pursue the form for 6 to 8 years because they see finite goals. And apart from the ISTD work, there were also a couple of courses that were mooted. Chitra Sundaram still teaches a master's, and I think she does performance arts in her curriculum.
Yes.
We had the Place Theatre, they had started a degree course there, but it happened for a little while, and then I think it had to close.
And then there were various efforts, weren't there? De Montfort University tried to start a tertiary degree in South Asian dance.
Lovely.
And it didn't in the end survive. I think you were at Middlesex University. Yes.
So I was involved in teaching choreography. And then there was the other center that started in Middlesex, but I haven't had much contact with it. Do you know about it, Anne?
Resen, which Chris Bannerman heads up, he's been very involved in Indian dance forms for many, many years. And I think Shobana is an affiliate artist with them. And I think also you've talked about the place, but also Surrey University for many years taught Kathak and subsequently Bharatanatyam as part of their undergraduate degree. So there's been pockets. Nothing has really become fully established. And I think this is another question to be asking when we look at the kind of placement of Indian dance in the UK. And for example, Magdalene Goringe, who is a Bharatanatyam dancer, is at the moment writing her PhD on professionalization. And she's really engaging with all these topics and how difficult it's been to get something really established outside of things like the CAT scheme, again, funded by the Arts Council, but nothing for that kind of professionalization to take dancers into jobs.
In the Midlands, of course, they've had the presence of Nahid Siddiqui, a fantastic Kathak dancer.
Yes.
Chitralekha Bowlers Dance Company,
Yes.
which is now strong with the numbers of pupils going in hundreds, but
Yes.
their presence in the community and also in the years they were funded, they did a lot of widespread education work with
Yes.
huge companies, dancers, 8 dancers,
Yes.
sometimes more. And that company was extremely successful. Now, of course, with the advent of the ISTD, Chitralekha has also gone into more teaching.
And we should mention here, you mentioned Bisaka, of course, her work with Sanjeevani Dutta.
So
They did so much with schools, they made videos. I mean, I used to use it in my teaching, fantastic stuff. And of course, Sanjeevani starting the Odissi Collective.
And Sanjeevani I've actually seen her perform with her Guru Shankar Bhera way back in the early 80s.
Yes.
Do straight Odissi. But Priya Pawar also was performing. It was more repertoire based. So there we are now, regular classes in Bharatanatyam, Kathak, Odissi, and Arunima Kumar has been teaching Kuchipudi in at the Bhavan.
Yes.
There are also a couple of other Kuchipudi teachers in the north, but I think it's a very exciting moment for Kuchipudi, which is on the threshold of development, especially since there is a community of many Telugu-speaking people now in the UK.
Yes.
In software jobs.
Yes. I think one important area is probably to talk a little bit about what has been written, and I'm thinking of Pulse, but maybe we could just hold that and for a moment or two take a little journey back from the 80s, wending our way back to the time, as you actually mentioned at the beginning, of Uday Shankar and his work in the 1930s. He wasn't bringing classical styles at that time, but extraordinary creative dance style that filled the theatres, and followed closely by, of course, Ram Gopal, the male Indian dancer who I'm writing a book on, and you and I have had long discussions about. And he was filling theatres in the late 1930s, just before war broke out, with his company and giving classical dance performances. And Ram Gopal came back after the war, joined by Kumudini Lakya, joined by Mrinalini Sarabhai in his company. They were also doing their own work. And in the 50s and 60s, he was a very big name with his company. Then in the 60s, when he was beginning to stop dancing, there were other well-known names coming over from India, and we moved sort of into the 60s and 70s.
Yes. Naseem has spoken to me about U.S. Krishna Rao and Chandrabhaga Devi. They actually being resident here, and how she used to attend classes with them, and that they did productions in which they took some of the younger students.
Yes.
My image of Ram Gopal sitting when the Academy did their Millennium on-site event at the South Bank, we had Mavin Koo dancing right at the top and suspended.
Coming of Age, wasn't it? It was called.
Coming of Age, it was called.
Over 100
Ram Gopal sat there. His carriage was regal, whatever his age. He had this thing of looking, and one felt really hopeful for Indian
Yes.
dance in Britain for the next millennium.
Yes, yes. And again, that was a pivotal moment, that millennium time. And I think you were quite involved in the choreographic and artistic content of that
Yes, it was a
extraordinary
terrible
show
vision.
at
Yes.
the South Bank, open air, site-specific show with over 100 dancers of all generations. And as you rightly say, this extraordinary moment of Ram
And
Gopal.
there, on one of the podiums or podia, I forget which is the plural word, we had Pratap Pawar, Sujata Banerjee, Chitra Sundaram, and Uni Krishnan dancing together. And then we had young Maven Ku almost on the roof of the South Bank.
Yes.
And there were so many other younger dancers, generations of them dancing with great energy in the in the other spaces.
Yes, yes. And I think alongside this, now coming into the millennium and the 20 years we've had, the kind of growth that's happened there has been different. There was a move away, first of all, from strictly classical to people, as you've rightly said, doing more experimental work, and Shane and others at the forefront of that. Sonia Sabri with her company, you know, doing beatboxing along with the Kathak, and many, many other examples. But I think, I'm sure you see this, but there's been a sort of turn back to classical forms again, and maybe this is a kind of motion, a wave motion that we have the interest coming and going in the extraordinary, strictly classical, and the beauty and the aesthetic beauty of that. I don't know if
so we have homegrown companies like Nina Rajrani Srishti,
yes.
Younger dancers now touring like Sita Patel, who
Yes.
all practiced and studied and practiced Bharatanatyam in Britain.
Yes.
And then, of course, there was India Dance Wales run by Kiran Ratna in Cardiff.
Yes. Yes. And I'm thinking
Banerjee in London.
Yes. And then we've got the new young, I mean, this is now moving us on to kind of the future, but again, perhaps just before we do that, we could note how important the journal Pulse, now edited and really supported by Sanjeevani Dutta. It's been going a very long time. Chitra Sundaram was also editor for many years. And it really, in a way, is a labor of love, but it's such an important magazine journal for South Asian dance in the UK, still going and still very important. And then we have, you know, Royana Mitra, who is a performer academic who's written a very important work on Akram Khan and his current work. Sitara Tobani, who was working in Oxford, she's an Odissi dancer, originally from Canada, again has done a very important work. Anusha Kedha, looking at South Asian dance forms in the UK, and Prathana Prokstadia, her book also incredibly important.
The privilege for some of the younger people to see somebody like Briju Maharaj or
Kumudini has come.
Yep. Sorry, Kumudini.
Yes.
Kumudini Ben. I was trying to find the right form of respectful address. So having seen them or seen people like Professor Chandrasekhar, the Dhananjayans, these have been enormous opportunities for the young here. The Bhavan, of course, at one time when they were doing one of their decadian celebrations, they had managed to bring in a lot of different teachers into the Bhavan. And of course, they have this wonderful Prakashya Dagude resident teacher. They've had a variety of Kathak teachers coming in, doing their tenures and moving on. So in terms of the inputs the young people have got, it's a very good time.
Yes. And you've kind of reminded me in that of, I mentioned, and we both mentioned Kumudin Lakia, who danced originally with Ram Gopal and then...
Yes, I mean, imagine.
And she has one of her senior disciples here, Urja Thakore, who runs her own dance
Urja Thakur, yes.
and is a wonderful choreographer and dancer herself. And her younger generation are now part of this, her younger generation of students are now part of these new collectives that are starting and are taking a really, I think, a very active place in what is going on today.
And likewise, Sujata Banerjee's Hemantika festival every year, when it's been possible and corona-free, it has included a variety of different artists, and they get the chance to work with Maharaj Ji,
Yes.
who still comes.
Yes, that's incredible too. That's very.
And what I would like to say is, while at the moment the curation involves more overseas artists coming in, one would hope that in a few years to come. So that was one thing. The second thing is that the number of male dancers that are being generated within the UK in a classical style is not as robust as one would like it to be. Mm-hmm. So these were a couple of points I wanted to make.
I would have said that I'm actually pretty hopeful about the future, given the fact that we still don't have a formal training system. I think despite that, the young people are really taking the classical dance forms into new areas and leading with all their online teaching that they've had to be doing during the COVID times, with new choreographies. They've been looking at heritage projects through Academy. I feel the future is actually very, I feel very confident about what is happening.
I felt like a student in a classroom, both sort of taking notes and then, trying to focus on what you're saying. It's been just overwhelmingly rich. And such a discussion. It's such a shame that we don't have more time. But I'm really speechless, and I'd just like to do this to both of you, and just thank you so much for sparing the time to share all of this history and evolution. I would also like to make a special mention about the Nehru Center, which has not only enabled the festival, but has been instrumental, more so in the last few years, in collaborating with the classical Indian dance fraternity. Also, Guru Pushkala Gopal, being the humble and magnanimous person that she is, did not mention the key contribution of Sanskriti School of Music and Dance, where her daughter, Shruti Sriram, the founder and director, thoughtfully and painstakingly teaches Bharatanatyam and Carnatic vocal in conjunction, so a natural connection is made with the art forms. We will now move on to the dance recital for the day.
It is my absolute privilege and honor to introduce the opening performance of APRAJITA by our Guru, Srimati Devi Basu and Sanyuktam Arts Mumbai. Guru Devi Basu, or Devi Di, to all her students, has dedicated her life to enriching the classical dance style of Odissi. One of the foremost senior disciples of Padma Vibhushan Guru Kelucharan Mahapatra, she is renowned for her stirring abhinaya and purity of form. She has nurtured and trained many dancers, many of whom are established soloists and teachers. Devidi's ability to raise the spiritual and emotive quality of Ashtapadis from the Gita Govindam and the more regional Oriya compositions is universally acknowledged. Some of her notable works include group choreographies or solo compositions by Guru Kelucharan Mahapatra, pieces set to poems by Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, whose philosophy has been a profound influence on her work and life. Devidi will be accompanied by senior dancers from Sanyuktam Arts Mumbai, Anu Narayan, Rakhi, Archana Basu, and Kritika Mondal. Sanyuktam Arts is an organization founded by Devidi for carrying on the Guru Shishya Parampara that she lives by. Please welcome to our virtual stage Devidi and the beautiful dancers from Sanyuktam Arts Mumbai.
প্রাণ একিলা বন্যে পূর্ণ প্রাণ প্রাণেশ্বর একিলা বন্যে পূর্ণ প্রাণ প্রাণেশ্বর একিলা বন্যে পূর্ণ প্রাণ প্রাণেশ্বর আনন্দ বসন্ত সমাগমে একিলা বন্দে পূর্ণ প্রাণ প্রাণেশ্বর একিলা বন্দে পূর্ণ প্রাণ প্রাণেশ্বর বিকশিত প্রীতি কুসুমে হে আনন্দ বসন্ত সমাগমে বিকশিত প্রীতি কুসুমে বিকশিত প্রীতি কুসুম পুলকিত চিত কাননে একিলা বন্দে পূর্ণ প্রাণ প্রাণেশ্বর একিলা বন্দে পূর্ণ প্রাণ প্রাণেশ্বর জীবন লতা অবলতা তব চরণে জীবন লতা অবলতা তব চরণে হরষ গীত উচ্ছ্বসিত হে আনন্দ বসন্ত সমাগমে হরষ গীত উচ্ছ্বসিত হে হরষ গীত উচ্ছ্বসিত কিরণ মগন গগনে কিলা বন্দে পূর্ণ প্রাণ প্রাণেশ্বর আনন্দ বসন্ত সমাগমে একিলা বন্দে পূর্ণ প্রাণ একিলা বন্দে পূর্ণ প্রাণ একিলা বন্দে পূর্ণ প্রাণ প্রাণেশ্বর pa sa ni da pa ma pa ga ma pa ni da pa ma ga ni sa ni sa ta jam ta ri jam ta jam ta che nu ta ti na je nu ta ri je na ta jam ta ri jam ta jam ta che nu ta ti na je nu ta ri je na ta te na ta ri je ta te na ta ri je na ta ta te na ta ri je na ta jai ta jai ta jai ta jai ta jai ta jai ta ri ta jai ta jai ta jai ta ri ta jai ti na je na ta je na ta jam ta jam jam ta ta ri ta je ta ri ta jam ti na je na ta je na ta jam ta jam jam ta jam ta ri ta je na je nu ta ri ta jam ta jam ta ri ta je je nu ta ri ta jam je nam ta ga jin ta ta hum ta ri ta jam je nam ta ga jin ta ta hum ta ri ta takajenu tari jam tari jam tari jam tajenu tajenu ta jam ta jam takajenu tari jam tari jam tari tajenu tajenu ta jam ta jam takajenu tari jam tari jam tari tajenu 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 ta jam ta jam takajenu tari jam tari tajenu tajenu ta jam ta jam takajenu tari jam tari jam tari tajenu 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 ta jam ta jam takajenu tari jam tari jam tari tajenu 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 ta jam ta jam takajenu tari jam tari jam tari tajenu 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 ta jam ta jam takajenu tari jam tari jam tari tajenu 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 ta jam ta jam takajenu tari jam tari jam tari tajenu 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 ta jam ta jam takajenu ଶୈଳ ପ୍ରବଳ ମତ ବାରଣ ବାହେ ନୀଳ ଶୈଳ ପ୍ରବଳ ମତ ବାରଣ ପ୍ରବଳ ମତ ବାରଣ ପ୍ରବଳ ମତ ବାରଣ ପ୍ରବଳ ମତ ବାରଣ ମୁଆରତ ନଳିନୀ ବନକୁ ଘର ଦଳନ ମୁଆରତ ନଳିନୀ ବନକୁ ଘର ଦଳନ আহে নীল শৈল গজরাজ চিন্তা কলা আই ঘোর জলেন গজরাজ চিন্তা কলা আই ঘোর জলেন গজরাজ চিন্তা কলা আই ঘোর জলেন চক্র পেশি নক্র নাসি চক্র পেশি নক্র নাসি উদ্ধারিল আপন আহে নীল শৈল প্রবল মত বারণ প্রবল মত বারণ প্রবল মত বারণ মুয়ারত নলিনী বনকু কর দলন আহে নীল শৈল পুরুষ ভাষলে শুনি দ্রৌপদীর জনাণ পুরুষ ভাষলে শুনি দ্রৌপদীর জনাণ পুরুষ ভাষলে কোটি বস্ত্র দেই হে রক্ষা কল বারণ নীল প্রবল মত বারণ প্রবল মত বারণ কুয়ার তলিনী মনকু কর দଳନ নীল শৈল প্রহ্লাদ পিতা সে যে বড় দুষ্ট দারুণ 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 সম্ভরু বাহারি তাঙ্কু সম্ভরু বাহারি তাঙ্কু সম্ভরু বাহারি তাঙ্কু সম্ভরু বাহারি তাঙ্কু নিদারিল তক্ষণ সম্ভরু বাহারি তাঙ্কু নিদারিল তক্ষণ নীল শৈল প্রবল মত বারণ প্রবল মত বারণ প্রবল মত বারণ মুহারত নলিনী মনকু কর দଳନ নীল শৈল নীল শৈল নীল শৈল আহি নীল শৈল চারুশীলে মুঞ্চময়ী মানমণি দানৌ প্রিয়ে
চারুশীলে মুঞ্চামাই মানমনি সপদে মদনানলু দহতি মম মানসং সপদে মদনানলু দহতি মম মানসং দেহি মুখ কমলা মধুপানম দেহি মুখ কমলা মধুপানম দেহি মুখ কমলা মধুপানম वदसि यदि किञ्चिदपि दन्तरोचे कौमुदी वदसि यदि किञ्चिदपि दन्तरोचे कौमुदी हरति दर तिमिरामति घोरं सुरदधर सिधवे तव वदन चन्द्रमा रोचयति लोचन चकोरं रोचयति लोचन चकोरं रोचयति लोचन चकोरं त्वमसि मम भूषणं त्वमसि मम जीवनं त्वमसि मम भूषणं त्वमसि मम जीवनं त्वमसि मम भवदलधीरा भवतु हवति हमाय शतकमनुरोधिनी तत्र मम हृदयमपि यत्नं स्मरगरलखण्डनं मम शिरसि मण्डनं स्मरगरलखण्डनं 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 শিরাশি মৌনম দেহি পাদ পল্লব জ্বলতি মাই দারুণ মদন কদন হরতরু পাহিত বিকার দেহি পদ পল্লব দেহি পদ পল্লব দেহি পদ
जटाजूट समायुक्तम् जटाजूट समायुक्तम् अर्धेन्दुकृतशेखरम् अर्धेन्दुकृतशेखरम् लोचनात्रय संयुक्तं पूर्णेन्दु सदृशानना लोचनात्रय संयुक्तं पूर्णेन्दु सदृशानना जटाजूट समयुक्तं अर्धेन्दुकृतशेखरम् आकाशी पुष्प
वर्णवान् अतशि पुष्पात् वर्णवान् अतशि पुष्पात् वर्णवान् अतशि पुष्पात् वर्णवान् सुप्रतिष्ठां सुलोचनां 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 नवयौवन सम्पन्ना सर्ववर्ण भूषिता नवयौवन सम्पन्ना सर्ववर्ण भूषिता सर्ववर्ण भूषिता जटाजूट समयुक्तां सुचारु दशनां देवीं पीनोन्नत पयोधरम् सुचारु दशनां देवीं पीनोन्नत पयोधरम् त्रिवंगस्थानं संस्थानं त्रिवंगस्थानं संस्थानं दशबाहु समन्वितं दशबाहु समन्वितं दशबाहु समन्वितं दशबाहु समन्वितं त्रिशूलं दक्षिणपाणौ त्रिशूलं दक्षिणपाणौ खड्गा खड्गा चक्र खड्गा चक्र क्रमोदधा दक्षिणबाणं दक्षिणबाणं तथा शक्ति तथा शक्ति दक्षिणे तु विचिन्तयेत् एतकम् एतकं पूर्ण च पञ्च पाशं अंकुशम् एव च घण्टा घण्टां वा परशुम् शुभापि वामतः सन्निवेशयत् त्रिवंगस्थान संस्थानं त्रिवंगस्थान संस्थानं महिषासुरमर्दिनीं 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 जयन्ति मंगलकाली भद्रकाली कपालिनी जयन्ति मंगलकाली भद्रकाली कपालिनी दुर्गा शिवा क्षमा धात्री दुर्गा शिवा क्षमा धात्री दुर्गा शिवा क्षमा धात्री स्वाहा स्वदा नमस्तुते स्वाहा स्वदा नमस्तुते स्वाहा स्वदा नमस्तुते 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 नमस्तुते